7 p.m., City of Somerton regular council meeting. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Gerardo Anaya,
Present.
Vice Mayor Jesus Roldan, Councilmember Luis Galindo,
Present.
Councilmember Miguel Villalpando, Councilmember Juan Castillo,
Present.
Councilmember Marta Gonzalez, Councilmember Lorena Delgadillo.
Present.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on. Call to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to address council?
Carlos Anaya.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Carlos Anaya, 1055 South Bingham Avenue here in Somerton. I'm the president of El Diablito ASU Alumni Chapter, and I'm here to thank the City of Somerton employees and, you know, everyone from administration to chiefs to the people of Public Works and Parks for the support. You know, they worked long hours, I know, in preparation for the Somerton Tamale Festival, which we just had on Saturday, and it was a success, and it was all thanks to the people that work for the city, you know, and also other community members. But I'm just here just to on behalf of the Somerton Tamale Festival nonprofit and from El Diablito ASU Alumni Chapter, I just want to thank everyone, the City of Somerton, for the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to address council?
Alan Litherland.
Hello, my name is Alan Litherland. I live at 3473 East County 16th Street here in Somerton. And what I've got to address is kind of like a proposal and questionnaire for the city. I did a survey of my property recently and found out that there is no right of way and there is no easement on my property, and County 16th Street runs right through the edge of my property. But for the last few years, the city's been working with me pretty good, but they've been eroding the side of the road where my driveways are. I have 3 driveways to my property, and they've been coming up and fixing it. But what I'd like to propose is have a apron along there so that erosion stops and I don't have to call them up to repair the road anymore. I mean, it's a pain for me, and it's also a pain for the city to schedule that. So I don't know if the city wants to work something out to do that, or how you want to do that, but that's my proposal.
Yeah, and a couple to the public, we can't make decisions, but the public works director is here and the city manager, and they'll get their information and then they'll meet and then they'll present a
Yeah,
proposal.
I've talked to them before, and like I said, they're very willing to come out and do it. It's just that it's, you know, it's a task for me and them. So
Okay. Thank you.
that's pretty much all I've got.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to address council? Okay, we have 2 presentations. The first one is Mike Horton, General Manager for Allo Communications.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jasmine Samudio, Economic Development. I have the honor today to present to you Mr. Mike Horton with Allo Communications. He is a general manager, and he's here to convey the message of Allo Fiber and its plans to integrate into Somerton. Mr. Horton.
Thank you, Jasmine. Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff.
Again, I'm with Allo Fiber, and I brought a few of my colleagues tonight, and I'd just like to very briefly introduce them. Mr. Sean Trout is our Director of Public-Private Partnerships. Mr. Pete Montalvo is the Staff Manager for Allo Arizona, lives right here in Yuma. And then my colleague that I'm going to introduce tonight, who's going to be doing the presentation, is Mr. Doc Weininger. And I'll turn it over to Doc right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everybody. We've been meeting with the staff from the city, and it was suggested that we come and make a presentation to the council to introduce Allo and talk about the project that we will have coming up in 2024 here in the city of Somerton. So we have a PowerPoint. I'll go through it briefly and we'll answer questions. Allo is headquartered in Nebraska. The decision was made in the fall of 2021 for Allo to expand to Arizona. We also serve the Front Range of Colorado. And we are what you call a competitive fiber to the premise provider. So we build ubiquitous citywide networks. And what that means is we'll go into a city and we build to every residence, business, school, government institution within the city. We don't redline any areas. We don't just build to, businesses. We build to everybody. And that's been our model for the 20 years we've been in business, and will be our model here in the city of Somerton. We are privately owned. Our primary capital partners are Nelnet. If any of you have ever had a student loan, I apologize. But Nelnet has about $750 billion under management for the federal government for processing student loans, headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then SDC Capital Partners, which specialize in data centers and other technology projects, owns 48%, Nelnet 45%. Our CEO and management company own the other 7% of the company. We currently pass more than 1 million in population. So next slide, please. Our core values at Allo, and all our decisions made about that. And we've all worked in companies that had core values. They had mission statements. Almost every meeting we have addresses whether we're going to do something or not. How do our core values impact that? And on the honest core value, we don't do any introductory pricing. So we know everybody's familiar with, it's X number of dollars this month, and 6 months from now it goes up, $50 a month. We don't do that. If you're a customer for 5 minutes, 5 days, or 5 years, you pay the same. Everybody pays the same. So there's no pricing gimmicks along those lines. And we try to be obviously honest in all of our dealings with our vendors, our associates, all. Exceptional. Our service platform, we're 5 nines. We're up 5 9% of the time. We have our own customer service that is 24/7, 365, that are our employees. We don't use call centers. We don't offshore anything. It is all done with our employees. So if somebody has a problem at 2 o'clock in the morning with their internet and they call our help number, they get one of our employees. Now, it may roll over. The employee may be in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. The employee may be in Lake Havasu, but they get one of our employees. A net promoter score, I don't know if people are familiar with that, but you can have a net promoter score from a -100 to a +100. And we survey our customers after install, after 6 months, after a year, ongoing after that. And we ask them, how likely are you to choose Allo as your provider? If you say 9 or 10, then we get a +1. If you say 7 or 8, it's 0. 6 and below is a -1. The average ISP nationwide score is 16 for an internet provider. So we're proud of our 70 net promoter score. We've had it as high as 84. We're proud of that because that's what our customers say about us. I can sit here and tell you anything, and I just may, but that's our customers that are speaking on our behalf. Local, we hire local. We have currently 85 full-time employees in Yuma County, and we will have well over 100 local employees in Yuma County. We'll have employees in Somerton. We have our employees, are everybody from our installers to our customer service people to our remediation people. If something needs to be fixed, are locating people. We do all of our own locating of our own networks. So when the city has a project, we have local locators that locate those. We had done 172,000 locates of our own facilities this year with one at fault, not 1,000, but one at fault out of 172,000 locates. So, you know, highly trained staff, and that person's no longer with us, by the way. We didn't fire him, but he's no longer with us. And then hassle-free is our fourth core value. We'll be the first to admit that during construction, we're anything but hassle-free. I mean, when you think about it, you know, the telephone companies had 120 years to build Somerton. You know, the cable companies had 60 or 70 years to build Somerton. We will build an entirely new utility in this city in under 24 months once we start construction. So you do have disruption. You'll have to have, you know, short-term street closures. You know, you have to have things like that. But we really do. We have full-time mediation teams to take care of problems as they come up. You know, any type of construction, we ask the city to have them call us, you know, if they have an issue, if they have a problem, and we'll handle it so that your staff doesn't have to. Next slide, please. So Allo is, we're approximately 1,550 employees and growing. We have about 155,000 customers. We add about 700 customers a week. The current communities that we serve are as small as 1,500, as large as 290,000. Our largest community is City of Lincoln, Nebraska. Yuma, City of Yuma, where we have started construction, actually have customers now in Yuma, will be our second largest market of all of our markets. You know, we have some of the recognition that we've had up there, in #1 ISP in the Midwest. Last quarter, there's an international internet testing company, and they rate quarterly the 100 largest cities in the country. Lincoln, Nebraska is one of the 100 largest cities. So when you consider download speed, upload speed, and latency, last quarter, Lincoln, Nebraska had the fastest internet in the United States, in the 100 top cities, which is, again, our network and is what we'll be building here in Somerton. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a map, not necessarily easy to see. You'll see we started in Nebraska. We were actually started along the Colorado border in Nebraska and built in the Panhandle first. 2015, we were acquired by Nelnet because they wanted fiber to the home built in Lincoln. And that's when we really started building out eastern Nebraska. You can see the Front Range of Colorado north of Denver there. And then currently, we have 6 markets, including Somerton, that have been announced in Arizona. We have another dozen that have been provisionally approved by our board all over the state of Arizona. And we are doing the final financial studies on those communities, so that we'll be announcing more communities as we get into 2024 across the state of Nebraska. And that's my role with the company, is I handle all government relations, but also I'm responsible for the Arizona expansion, you know, identifying communities, doing the demographic studies, and getting the agreements that we need to get in place. Next slide, please. So what do we offer? We're a triple play provider. On residential side, we offer high-speed internet. Our minimum speed is 500 meg symmetrical, meaning upload and download both. And when we talk about our hassle-free service, our service includes, in the base rate, a Wi-Fi wireless router. And so that means our technical people, if you call in, you have a problem, they can actually check the router from our network operations center, from our technical support, and can reset it if necessary, or can make other repairs. And it's ours, so if there's a problem, there's not a service call. We come out and fix it. But it's so much easier for our tech support to not have to troubleshoot, you know, 50 different routers. So we provide the router as part of our service. We also provide to residential service a gig and 2.5 gig. A gig is 1,000 meg, 2.5 gig download, and it's scalable to 10 gig in the home. By the way, the router can support over 500 individual devices for your home. It says 250 on there, but it's now been upgraded. It's now over 500 individual devices. We also offer traditional linear cable television. Still about 25% of our customers still take linear cable television with local stations. We use wireless set-top boxes there. And again, award-winning user interface. And we still provide traditional phones for people that either don't want cell phones or they have security systems or whatever it happens to be, along with the unlimited long distance and all those products. Next slide, please. On the business side, same thing. Synchronous internet, 500 meg to a gig plus. We can provide up to 100 gig for businesses that need it through the connections that we have. I think this is, I guess, where I'd like to interject that a huge part of us being in Somerton is the Yuma County network that is being built and is being funded through the federal grants and also a state grant. As most of you realize, we won that RFP to design and oversee the construction of the network, and we have a 40-year agreement to operate that with Yuma County. But without that middle mile network, it would not have been possible for us to build last mile fiber to the home in the city of Somerton. So that's a very important part of this entire network. We also have connections to AWS and Azure. We just bought a company out of Kansas City called Avid Business Solutions. We are now providing firewalls, managed services, IT services for businesses, in addition to the traditional telecom services. On the phone side, we do hosted PBX solution as well as other solutions. Our largest customer has 35,000 stations. So we can handle large customers if we need to, also providing Teams voice. And then again, we do have business television as well. So next slide, please. So this is pretty small, but what this tells you when you look at it, this is us against the other Midwest broadband providers. You can look at this later when you want to. You'll see Allo #1 across all of that. We generally switch first and second place with Google Fiber. And we've actually been able to impress Google Fiber to the point where we're now building a suburb of 60,000 people of Omaha on behalf of Google Fiber. We're now a construction partner of Google Fiber, building network on their behalf, starting in Nebraska and hoping that that partnership then moves on elsewhere. Next slide, please. That's just another graphic of the fastest ISPs in the central. Some of those, you have to take the rankings a little bit of a grain of salt because, Sonic, for example, only offers a gig. So, they're going to have that, whereas we have a number of lower products from a financial standpoint that people may not want to build a gig, but nevertheless, it's very, very fast network. Next page, please. Next slide. You can go ahead and scroll by that. I already talked about the Net Promoter Scores. So you can scroll the next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about the Affordable Connectivity Program because the Affordable Connectivity Program was created, and the picture here, by the way, the follically challenged gentleman there who's shaking hands with the vice president is our CEO. That's Brad Moline, and the founder of Allo and the current and still the CEO of our company. He was at the White House to talk about Allo's affordability connectivity program with people in the White House. And Congress created this program during COVID so that everybody would have access to the internet. And so if you qualify for free and reduced lunch, Social Security disability, Section 8 housing, Pell Grants, there's a lot of different ways you can qualify. Allo has a product that is free for 100 meg symmetrical, which is more than enough to do homework, calls, video calls, things like that. Or you can get $30 off any of our other products. Ironically, about 2/3 of the ACP customers use that $30 to buy either our gig or our 500 meg product. So they take the higher speed. We have the latest numbers about 5,000 ACP households throughout the Allo network. And so just wanted people to be aware of that program and that we do participate in that. So next slide, please. So in Arizona, we talked about our markets. We currently have customers in Lake Havasu City, Kingman, and the city of Yuma, along with the Yuma County project. Construction is started in San Luis. And I have Somerton here on the bottom. I'll talk specifically about Sierra Vista has been approved by our board. And then, as I mentioned, about a dozen other markets currently under study. Mentioned the Yuma County Middle Mile Projects, 140-mile network, designed, built, operated by Allo and owned by Yuma County. And that is just going to be an incredible network for rural Yuma County. It's also going to open up the doors. There's a program called BEAD, and it's broadband equity, access, and diversity. And Arizona has been given $993 million for BEAD money, so just short of $1 billion. And that will go to the rural areas of Arizona. Well, Yuma County is going to be just positioned incredibly well to take advantage of that because the middle mile is already going to be built, throughout much of the county. And so a lot of the other counties are going to struggle with that without that middle mile network because BEAD doesn't allow middle mile construction. It's last mile construction. So the Yuma County project is very important for additional grants that are going to be coming down probably late next year. And we'll be in part of that process as well. Specifically for the Somerton fiber to the prem, that's what FTTP is, fiber to the premise project. Permitting facilities acquisition is already in process with construction beginning late first quarter or second quarter 2024. Next slide. We'll come back and answer questions at the end. Just wanted to show you a quick case study of what it means. Lincoln was a really interesting case study. We've done about over a dozen public-private partnerships. Having said that, the entire build in Somerton will be privately financed by Allo. We're not asking for any grant monies. We're not asking for any public money. This is all private capital. It will be somewhere between $10 and $12 million to build the city of Somerton. But in Lincoln, starting in the 1970s, they had a visionary director of transportation, public works, who every time they did a street project, they put in conduit. And so that project took 8 million linear feet of fiber, but they had 300 miles of conduit already in the streets of Lincoln. So that was a great deal. It took 3 years to build it. It's about 300,000 people. And we now have 70,000 customer units on fiber in Lincoln. The funny thing about this is before we started building Lincoln, they had the 28th fastest fiber in the state of Nebraska. Now, our CEO always says, I'll spot you Omaha, but name me 27 other towns in Nebraska. They all had faster internet than Lincoln. And now with the 4th fastest download, 2nd lowest latency, 3rd fastest upload, overall fastest internet provider in the country. So that shows what fiber will do for a community. So I think that's the, final slide. And Mike Horton and I are here and happy to answer or attempt to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions or comments? So compared to what the fastest residential here in Somerton is to what's once Allo installs the fiber, what's going to be the difference in what do we get currently? What are we going to get?
So you have you have wireless providers, and then you have your wireline providers, your cable provider, your telephone provider. It's all a product of the delivery mechanism. So the telephone company has copper here. It's unlikely it can provide more than about 10 meg download and maybe one or 2 meg upload. So, we're talking basically 2,500 meg download and upload. The cable company, I'm guessing, probably advertises 940. Okay, do they advertise their gig product, or do you know, Mike? Okay, but their upload speed is limited by, again, the technology to about 50 meg upload. And that's if you get the absolute fastest product, you buy the top of the end of line product. Most of their lower products are 20 to 30 meg upload that they provide. So since fiber is symmetrical, then you're looking at anywhere from 500 meg to 2,500 meg symmetrical versus maybe 900/20 or 30. And then the other key distinction, Mayor, is that on these fiber networks, as they're designed and deployed by Allo, it's a dedicated network. And so if you're paying for a gig, you get that whole gig. And the way that the cable networks were designed, it's a shared bandwidth. And so if people have had come home from school, come home from work, and they notice that their speeds go way down, that's because they're sharing that bandwidth with their neighbors. And so that's one of the key differences too, is that it's a dedicated facility versus a shared facility throughout your neighborhood and your area.
Other questions or comments?
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Doc, I have a question. Can you explain to the council what you're currently, or not too much detail, but I guess briefly, how you're working with the other cities and with maybe San Luis and Yuma on how you're going to be providing service agreements, that kind of background?
Okay. I'll address a couple of things, and Mike can also fill in. So one of the things I want to talk about is when we design the community, we divide the community into grids of 800 to 1,000 rooftops. And everybody has a different acronym. We call them PONs, P-O-N-S. And so we will permit the PONs one at a time with the city staff. And this is what we do both in San Luis and in Yuma. And then as a pond is completed, and normal pond construction is 90 to 120 days, we light that pond and turn up service in that area. So we don't wait to complete the entire city before we provide service. We do it one pond, one grid at a time. And so we will usually permit those ponds, hopefully 2 or 3 at a time. And then as we're completing a pond, we'll be permitting the next pond. So it's all rolling after that point. And so you're permitting, you're building, and we usually with the cities, we'll have a weekly meeting, construction meeting, in which we'll talk about where we're going to be that week, where we're going to be building that week, and not overwhelm the city staff. Work with the staff to make sure that everybody's comfortable on what we're trying to do that particular week. Our contractors are local from the city of Yuma. We're using Round 5. I think Quail and Accurate also are probably going to be also building, but all of our contractors are actually local contractors from Yuma County. So we will not be built. We will bring in some of our own people that have specialized abilities or skills that we need. And I guess the other thing I would say is one of the things I didn't address is we follow the nature of the electric provider. So if the electric provider is aerial, we build aerial on their poles. If they're underground or if their poles fail, we build underground. We don't set any of our own poles. We don't, ever add any poles to the network, but we will use the network of the electrical provider. So people that we tend to bring in from out of state they're our own employees, but are our aerial crews, because a lot of times, that's a different construction skill than exists out there in a lot of companies. So as far as agreements, we have the video service license agreement, which gives us it's a statewide, I think it was 2018, and the Arizona legislature passed a standard video service license agreement. And since we are a video provider, a cable provider under the FCC rules, we utilize that video service license agreement, which then provides us with the easement and right-of-way authority we need to be able to build within the city. So that's where that agreement is. And then the other agreements, I mean, we sit down with with our design people and with the city, and as we do the permitting process, we do all of the permitting internally. we will permit those ponds one at a time then.
And then I had one more question. You mentioned the bead grant. So is that something that you'll approach the city when that comes out, or is that something work hand in hand with you, or how does that, how do you see that?
We will not foresee applying for bead money for Somerton. It'll be 100% private capital for Somerton. And so, which is good because, the bead money, anytime you get the federal government involved, you have, so the state, the way bead works, not to get too far in the weeds, but the state has to develop a plan that the federal government has to approve. And so we're still in the process. The state hasn't even submitted its plan to the federal government yet. And then the federal government has to approve that plan, which means that, there's a lot of people smarter than me that think it's not going to be available till 2025. We'll have a significant portion of the city of Somerton built before the bead applications are even opened. So anything within the city limits, we'll be building with private capital.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that in Somerton, you're starting at the end of the second quarter of 2024. What is your projected timeline for completion of this project?
Yeah, actually, we hope to start by the end of the first quarter or early second quarter.
Okay.
City the size of Somerton we should be able to build in under 24 months. Is that fair, Mike? 18 to 24 months.
Okay, so we're looking at the start of 2026 more.
To be completely done. First, areas will be lit more than likely by the end of 2024, the first areas. But to be completely done, it should be in 2026. The one thing I would say is we build out generally from what we call a central office. And the central office is where we have all of our electronics, our head in for our video, all those things come through that location. It would remind you of a building you see under a cell tower, 20 by 30 building, but it needs to have gas available, to be up 5 nines. We have a generator for backup for in case there's any kind of power failure or anything like that. And so we start from there and we build out. So areas of town, people always want to be first, obviously, but it all depends on ultimately where that central office gets located.
So you mentioned lit areas. So the services will be given in chunks within the city?
Yes.
So who will determine where does it begin?
Really comes down to our design team, that depending on where the electronics are located that connect to the internet to go to the world, depending on where that's located, usually we'll build that first, and then we'll build the feeder routes throughout the city. And then we start building what they call the last mile to the home. So it's going to depend on where that is. And if there's something special that's needed, what we've done in other communities, for example, if a school needs fiber immediately, a hospital needs fiber immediately, we'll do what we call breakout routes and build to that facility. That's why we like to work with the city to find out, a couple of things. One, if there's a street or roads project coming up and we need to make sure that we either get in there before or wait until after, depending on what the preference is, we work with the city staff on that. By the same token, we'd like to know if there is something specifically that needs to be done, whether it's a medical facility, a school, or something like that, that we can design with that in mind. But otherwise, it is a design process that we've used for 20 years that designs out from the location where the electronics are.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, if I may, I had just one more question. The middle mile, we've kind of been shown that, and I think I've shared that with mayor and council. Kind of, well, I take that back. The county did a presentation last council meeting, and they presented the middle mile area, and it kind of forks out in different places. Is that going to be extended, or is that just a start? And then why I ask is we have an E to D corridor on 95. So I wasn't sure if that was going to grow or not.
There will be growth in the corridor, but as far as what you're talking about, we would love to talk to you about that to find out, where that is, how it matches up with our design. Is it outside of the city limits or within the city limits or?
It's in the middle right now. I know you have one line that's going up to the Cocopa. So it's kind of heading that way.
Okay.
It's the light that's out there when you come down the hill, that will be connecting to the port of entry.
Okay,
So-
yeah, we're planning to build to the port of entry.
Okay.
And so, but we would need to probably look at that map. Mike, you want to address that? Yeah. And if I may, one of the things that we forgot to do is we printed this beautiful map that would show the ponds, the passive optical network of the 1,000 rooftop neighborhoods that we're going to build for Somerton, and then the middle mile, how it's going to intersect in green. And we left it at the office. We will bring that back and we will leave it here for you to have here at City Hall so that you can have that. When you start looking at the middle mile and the facilitation of that, it is an open access network such that anyone, whether it was Verizon Wireless, whether it was the cable company, whether it's Allo that would like access to that fiber, or if the city of Somerton has some special needs, we all have the ability to lease that fiber. Allo as a partner can connect that fiber to any facilities we need. For example, in Lake Havasu City right now, we built a middle mile coming back between Kingman and Lake Havasu City. ADOT has a bunch of traffic control signaling that they're using wireless signals today. We get dust storms, we get weather anomalies. Those wireless signals, and we all have cell phones, sometimes somewhere do not work. Guess what? Fiber does. And so that's one of the other unique applications. And as Doc had talked about, especially down here, in South County, when we look at autonomous vehicles, we look at the port of entries that are coming in, all of that needs fiber infrastructure. And that'll be an opportunity and a huge strategic and economic advantage for Yuma County, for the city of Somerton and the surrounding communities. And in your comment about BEAD money and broadband equity, access, and diversity, as we look at outside of the city center, Doc has been working with some of our engineering teams on these red dot maps, and that's either unserved or it's underserved. And anything that fits one of those two criteria becomes eligible for federal funding. We're working very hard and have a meeting tomorrow with members of the broadband administrator for the state of Arizona up in Phoenix. And we will certainly be looking at the vision from some of the farmers such as Mark Smith and Paul Brierly, that was at the University of Arizona, as the original broadband committee for the Yuma County Middle Mile, is that they want broadband everywhere in Yuma County. And access to broadband. Well, BEAD allows us then to go in down here in South County, find those areas that are not on the original Allo Pond map or the middle mile map, and start to get fiber connections out there. Local law enforcement, when we start looking at first response, how do you get better access points? How do you get better traffic data and information? So again, the fiber-rich environment is really going to enhance, today, tomorrow, and the next years for our children and beyond.
I just had one more.
Go ahead.
Have you reached out? I know that you're providing access to the Cocopa, but have you communicated with them on their needs maybe in the future? I know they're developing different projects. We have a West reservation and we have an East reservation. Wasn't sure if you've had that conversation with the Cocopa Nation.
Another great question. So we have first in the connection and the construction of the middle mile, one of the segments, how to eat an elephant will a bite at a time. And this middle mile network had 15 segments to it to go from North County to South County in what we're calling the first phase. And in that, we had one section that went through the Cocopa Casino, which of course is tribal land. And we had to go through a processing with tribal leadership, with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And so we've got an engagement there. Working with our partners at Yuma County right now, they have a much deeper engagement. And certainly that is one of the areas that they have a very kindred interest in. And we certainly want to partner and would look to this community for some leadership, some guidance, and some referrals as needed so that we can make sure that we're touching all the right partners, all the right communities as we extend fiber. Cool. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Chiefs, IT, questions, comments?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to getting started. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, presentation, possible direction regarding effects of 2020 Somerton Infill Incentive Overlay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Saul Albor, Community Development Director. Mayor and Council, tonight I have a presentation on the effects of the 2020 Somerton Infill Incentive Overlay. Mayor and Council, it is December 2023, and this plan was adopted in December 2020. 3 years have surely flown by that we've had this plan adopted. 3 years that we've been utilizing this plan. And all I can say is that it's worked pretty good for us. For those of you that weren't here or need a refresher on the Infill Incentive Overlay Plan, this plan was adopted in December of 2020. And the primary purpose of this plan is to incentivize development in the older parts of the city. That is the primary purpose. And the secondary purpose of the plan is to beautify the city center and push the adopted design guidelines. As I mentioned before, the plan has been generally successful. This is just a map, just to refresh your memory on the boundaries of the Somerton Infill Incentive Overlay Plan. The plan is, it's about 350 acres in size and is comprised of 3 sub-districts and 1 sub-district, which we call the no sub-district assigned, which could be a future district or perhaps annexed into one of the existing districts. But those are the general boundaries of the plan. Before I jump into the actual statistics on how the plan has worked out for the city in the 3 years that we've had it active, are there any questions up to this point on the plan?
Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this is it. These are the numbers. This is just a numbers presentation. From December 2020 to December 2023, there have been 5 new single-family homes built within the boundaries of the Infill Incentive Overlay Plan. There have been 4 new duplexes totaling 8 dwelling units, 2 new triplexes totaling 6 dwelling units, 2 new fourplexes totaling 8 units, 1 new apartment complex, 8-unit apartment complex, and 3 new commercial developments. In total, 36 residential units, 3 new commercial units with a total investment valuation of $4.5 million that has come into this central core of Somerton. I want to show you some, well, actually, I want to show you the examples, photos of what this looks like. These are some of the single family projects that were built in the city. 253 South Somerton Avenue and 354 South State Avenue, 2 new single family homes, good looking homes, tile roofs, stone veneer, columns, porches, landscaping. The elements of the plan in full display here. Keep going, Andrea, please. A more recent project, 404 North State Avenue, just up the street here, not even 400 feet away. Utilize the plan and develop this lovely little home at 404 North State Avenue. Landscaping, covered porch, columns. Same as the other one, 303 West Fern, right in front of the park. Tile roof, landscaping, columns, covered porch. Good looking homes, in my opinion. And this is this was actually a county project. This one was is located at 805 West Sunflower Court. This was a special case because there used to be an existing mobile home there that the owners applied for a grant at the county to have a new home built at that site. And this is during COVID, so the project was put on hold for a while. When it finally got restarted, the mobile home was demolished and the county wanted to proceed. There were some zoning issues with the property, but luckily, while COVID happened, we were able to get the plan adopted and they were able to utilize 4 incentives. They made the project possible. This whole home was built at 805 West Sunflower, covered porch, stone veneer, landscaping, a fine finished product in my opinion, considering the circumstances and the limited budget available for this project. Next slide. Some of the multifamily projects include 2 duplexes here, 332 South Congress, and this one's actually fairly new, 906 West Musgrove. These are multifamily units. I've mentioned many times before you in presentations that we are We are experiencing a boom in the plexes, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. And the plan, everyone who's built one has benefited from at least one incentive. In this case, both these projects utilize, can you scroll down a little bit, Andrea? 2 incentives apiece. We can keep going. Moving right along, you just see the duplexes popping up. If you drive around the city, the older part of the city, you see these, and these are units for people to live in. And we talk about we need more housing units. Well, this is a very, it's a booming type of housing unit right now. This one's actually under construction at 303 West Cano Street. That's a triplex. That's a multifamily. And they were able to take advantage of 3 incentives, in the duplex at 636 West Cano Street took advantage of 2 incentives. Keep going, Andrea, please. These pictures are fairly new, and they reflect the ongoing boom in duplex and triplex construction. 335 West George Street is a duplex. One thing I want to point out, because these are not finished, but that you can see, is that there is architectural variation to these. These are not plain boxes. There is character to these buildings. Dimensional offsets. There's porches, there's windows, transparency. There are elements that would normally not be provided if left alone to the developers without our guidance. And that is one of the hallmarks of this plan. Once these are finished, they will look very nice. They will be beautiful buildings here in the city. And then some of the larger projects, we had a 714 West Main Street, which was an 8-unit apartment complex. Would have not been possible to accomplish without the plan and its incentives, namely the stormwater retention waiver, the alley paving waiver, the parking reduction, which is massive. That's really what makes or breaks a project these days. But that's 8 units of people living in downtown Somerton. And then on the right side of the screen is 123 West Jacobs. So this is a very centralized project. It's actually not too far from here. You can see the water tower in the background. Is a 4-plex, a multifamily, parking through the alley, nice building coming. And the list goes on and on. Duplexes, triplexes all over the city. These are part of the list of the many projects that have been developing. We can just keep going into the commercial ones, Andrea. There was 3 commercial projects that did take advantage of the Infill Incentive Overlay Plan. The one shown here is 714 West Main Street. It's a new concept, actually. We have one of the most, if not the most popular type of new business in the city of Somerton is mobile food vending, or food vending in general. Everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but there's a large number of people who want to own a food vending business, a taco truck, hot dogs, you name it. It's popular right now. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, which is good. But there is no place for a lot of these businesses to locate. So this concept was for an outdoor food court anchored by a bar at the building. That was the idea. And I believe it still is. And we're working with the owner to see how we can help him get that up and running. But that it will be a very nice site once it gets filled in with tenants. Made possible, though, by the Infill Incentive Overlay Plan. It was quite a complicated parcel, but we were able to help them out using the incentives offered by the plan. We can keep going, Andrea. This one's a really, I think it's a success story. This is an old picture. There's been some more landscaping added to this project. But this one started out as a mobile food vendor. I just mentioned that it's a very popular business model right now. It started out as a mobile food vendor selling seafood out of that trailer you see there, but they were able to transition into an actual restaurant now. And if you haven't been there, it's right on Main Street. It's a new business at a previous, this is where the Greña Loca is. So that business closed down and now we have a new tenant. It wasn't vacant for very long. And then lastly is 4032 West Main Street, which is MCA Auto Sales. This one, I believe it's about a year and a half since they opened. But don't those palm trees look nice? Look at those beautiful date palms there, just like the high school. Everyone who passes by there says that it looks very nice. So, and it's a revenue generating business. So I think it's a win-win on no matter how you see it. They're on a conditional use permit. Even though they did utilize the compatible use incentive, we still had to take it to planning and zoning for a conditional use permit. And it's worked out pretty well. But mayor and council, the best is yet to come, I believe, with this plan. We're still utilizing it to this day. In the pre-development stage right now, we have one new single-family home. We have one duplex, one triplex, one fourplex, 2 new apartment complexes, and 3 new commercials. A total of 22 residential units planned and 2 commercial uses planned, with estimated valuation of $12 million. So that's another $12 million of investment that we're expecting into Central Somerton. Some of the larger commercial developments include the new Circle K, the City Hall redevelopment, the Tony Riggs property. I can't remember the address off the top of my head, but it's the corner lot here. And also at the currently vacant lot behind Chevron, that's where one of the new multifamily projects is planned. And we've had a meeting with the owner, and they're thinking of something really nice fronting to the pathway, accessible from the pathway. A very neat development opportunity, we believe. Just some incentive statistics here. The most common new use in these 3 years that we've used the plan is multifamily residential. That's been the most common proposal, and it's actually tied with duplex for the most common requested use within the boundaries of the plan, with 5 developments apiece. The most utilized incentive is the adjusted development standards incentive, which has been utilized 17 times in 17 different projects. This is your reduced setbacks, increased lot coverage, reduced parking, sorry, not reduced parking, but certain development standards such as setbacks and lot coverage that we adjust as long as the project is compatible. That's the most popular one. The second most popular one is your compatible use incentive, which eliminates the need for rezoning for certain compatible uses. Has been utilized 7 times, and a tie for the second place is your parking reduction incentive, which is exactly what it sounds like. Sometimes we find that the parking requirements are surplus to what the project actually needs, and we're able to use a sensible approach to determine how much parking project actually needs. And it's worked. Everyone seems to like it, but we realize that in 3 years, we have 3 years of data now that shows what's working, what's not. There are some incentives that have never been used in the 3 years. The facade improvement loan, for example, has never been used, and that's mostly due it's dependent on the availability of the city's budget to have monies available to lend out to the incentive, to the certain projects. It hasn't really been promoted much either, because of there's not always availability. But it's not requested too much, so that's all I'll say on that one. The historic restoration incentive has also not been utilized a single time, but I do see potential for that one, especially with some of the older city hall properties. A 30% reduction in the permit fee. That's what that translates to, is if you're restoring a historic building. And the adaptive reuse incentive is also has never been used, but that would be I see some potential for those two. Even though they haven't been used, I can see them being used, especially with the commercial developments.
What's the adaptive reuse incentive?
Mayor, the adaptive reuse incentive would be, for example, if a project is transforming a previous use into something else. If a retail establishment closed and a doctor wants to move into that space, it requires some tenant improvements with a building permit, they would receive a 30% discount off the building permit, even though it's not a historic structure. This is just if you're reusing the structure and it requires a building permit. My favorite statistic though, when a project comes to the city and they're eligible to utilize the infill incentive overlay plan, they can choose to do so or develop under their base standards, just our normal code. 100% of all eligible projects have opted to use the infill incentive overlay plan, which is, to me, the highest metric of success of this whole, the whole plan. Any questions so far for mayor and council?
Any questions or comments? Proceed.
Mayor and council, I think the key takeaway for this is that the infill incentive overlay plan is working as designed and expected. Residents, home builders, merchants, and investors are all benefiting from the plan. And by all available metrics, the infill incentive overlay plan has been a success since its adoption in 2020. But like all other adopted codes and plans, the infill incentive overlay plan must be updated periodically to reflect the ever evolving nature of real estate development and construction. We update our building codes, we update our zoning codes, we update the general plan, we update just about every code we have every 5 to 10 years, and this one should be no different. There's many things that we can do. There's a lot of opportunities that we have with this plan, keeping all the elements that are still working and have worked the best and building on those. That's what we have planned for this. If we could go to the next slide, Andrea. So mayor and council, what staff has in mind is to do a 2024 update to the plan, 4 years post-adoption. Subsequently, after the adoption, the update of the zoning and subdivision code, which will be completed in the next calendar year. As I mentioned, what we want to do is expand on the successful incentives and reconsider the non-successful ones. Are there some that we can eliminate? Possibly. Do we want to expand on the successful incentives? We'll look at it, see what options there are. One thing that we do want to do to the plan itself, not so much the contents in it, is to make it easier, more user-friendly, easier to understand. We've found that people often request a copy of this, and so we want to make it as easy and user-friendly as possible. We'll be working on that. Some of the design requirements, though, that are in the plan itself, same thing. Let's just, we hope to simplify them, make them easier to understand and enforce, but not reduce them as to reduce the quality, because that's the end goal. Beautify and increase the quality of the built environment. The plan staff envisions incorporating new concepts, reflective of nationwide trends, such as build-to-rent developments, multifamily detached, and cottage/tiny home developments. That's what you see on the picture there. That is a cottage subdivision. They're tiny, standalone dwelling units, more resemblant of your traditional single-family dwelling, when in fact it's actually a large apartment complex. That's really all it is, but just by looking at it, you wouldn't be able to tell. These are some new concepts that are popping up nationwide. We want to stay at the forefront of these trends. This alone here could be a presentation of its own, and I would like to make that for you, present that to you at a future meeting. But this is just to let you know what we have in mind for the 2024 update and going forward. Any questions from mayor and council?
Any questions or comments?
Every great plan, mayor and council, has its beginning and its end. And I believe we're well on our way to accomplishing our goals. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was thinking with like the cottages or tiny homes that, and you did mention it towards the end that that's a presentation within itself. So with this plan, that's what if there's any like big changes like that we tackle each individually and then whenever it's time to approve the plan that we had previous discussions as with direction from council and recommendations from staff. But yeah, the last thing I want to see is bring an updated plan that was probably the one or two times that we've heard about it. So it was with big changes like that. So hopefully we follow that plan and we take our time with it. But it's worked out pretty well by the information you gave us. So thank you. Any questions or comments? No. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving on to old business, discussion and possible action to approve conceptual plan by J2 Engineering.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. After reviewing the two concepts for the West Somerton Master Plan project at the December 5th, 2023 Council work session, we're presenting an updated concept provided by J2 Engineering. As per the discussions and recommendations held, the updated version shows the addition of a U12 size multi-use field overlaid on amphitheater. We would like to move forward with this great and important project. We have also Saul, since he was here since the beginning of this project. We also have Shane from J2 Engineering, if you have any questions about this conceptual design.
Any questions or comments? No questions. So, you like, yeah, it's basically, I think when we looked at it, there's both divided with two teams and very similar. And in our last work session, we discussed the amphitheater that we would like for that to be like a multi-use field. So that was a change that was made. So.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we have direction from mayor and council to move forward with this conceptual plan. That way J2 and LAS will move with the master planning of this area as you see now. And just to let you know, we have certain things coming in first, like the pond and then the shelter and the multi-use of that. But this can evolve to something different if for some reason funding or other challenges arise. But just to let you know, we want to just get that direction from mayor and council tonight that we move forward with what you see tonight.
Yes, go ahead.
I see the pool here. Is this pool gonna be able to be used for high school, meets when, like the one up in Cibola by Cibola?
That's the idea, yes.
The way shape, it kind of.
like
And Mayor, if I may, is Shane are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Shane, could you address that question that the councilwoman had?
Sure. I think I heard it right, and that is the shape of the facility. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So, Mayor, Council, the shape.
We lost him.
Successful pool layouts, and
Shane,
we just make sure that we've got the.
Shane, you're breaking up.
Okay.
Okay, we can hear you now. Can you try that again, please?
Sure. Can you see me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fantastic. I don't know what you heard, so I'm going to start over. Mayor and Council, this is simply a placeholder. And what we do is we look at other successful municipal pool layouts, and we just make sure that we have the space. But as we advance in this master planning phase, we start to define that a little bit more. But I will reassure you that this master plan is flexible as we develop it. So say, as an example, you get a grant and you are able to move forward with the municipal pool. this area is flexible enough to account for any specific design elements that you would want to incorporate. As it sits right now, it looks like we have 1.7 acres available for that. And then you have the playground adjacent to it. That can be flexible. So say we need a little bit more room for the municipal pool, that playground area can shrink, and so can the group ramada adjacent to it. So what I'm saying is that we're maintaining flexibility while determining and locking in a location, because we're looking at program relationships, adjacency to parking, access, adjacency to the lake, components like that. So as long as we've got this set, you have flexibility moving forward if that does become a reality.
And Mayor, if I may, so the pool isn't gonna look like a U-shaped bubble. There, it's just the space that's being utilized that we have available for the pool. It could be smaller, it could be bigger. It's just what they have, like Shane mentioned, it's a placeholder. So this is conceptual. So I know that, everything looks kind of rounded, but when it gets put together, it won't look like it's rounded. I guess is that correct, Shane? I don't know if you heard.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. So what you're looking at here is the placement of program elements and its relationship with each other. As this master plan develops, we'll be working with the vision that was developed with you folks through last, and also comments by staff and council as we advance. So we're at about 10,000 feet in the air right now. We're gonna descend down to about 1,000 feet to give you guys some more specificity, so that mayor, council, staff, and City of Somerton residents understand what the master plan is going to encompass at the end.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Castillo.
My question is, and I just want to make sure, I think in the work session, it was discussed, but I just want to confirm right now. But now, in the meantime, in the spot where we have the event space, the shelter, and the municipal pool, for the time being, we will have those as a multi-use fields or access, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Councilwoman Delgadillo.
Under the amphitheater, it says U12 sized. What does that mean?
Is the size of each of the soccer field that we're gonna have?
And Councilwoman, usually U12 is a pretty good size. We're looking at the size of Council Park, for example. That's about, this is probably a little bit bigger, but that's kind of that size there will give it a little bit more than what we have at Council Park.
Any more questions?
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the conceptual design for the West Somerton Master Plan prepared by J2 Engineering.
So motion by Councilman Castillo. Second by Councilman Galindo, also in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. New business, discussion of possible action to appoint Cindy Muñoz to the Somerton Parks and Rec Commission.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Angelica Roland, Parks and Recreation Director. Cindy Muñoz is a Somerton resident and has been an active member in the community, looking to get involved to support the parks projects and recreational programs. Mrs. Muñoz is a Somerton Rotarian and has banking experience. She's currently the branch manager at AEA Federal Credit Union. Mrs. Muñoz is willing to directly come in and volunteer to complement the vision of the Parks and Recreation Commission. So tonight she was not able to make it, but staff is asking a motion to appoint Cindy Muñoz to the Somerton Parks and Recreation Commission.
I have a question. I don't see an address here. Are we sure that it's within city limits?
Yes, I was able to reach out to Mrs. Muñoz and also our city manager, and she's actually a city resident, Somerton resident.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to appoint Cindy Muñoz to the Somerton Parks and Recreation Commission.
There's a motion by Councilman Castillo,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Delgadillo. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 2, discussion and possible action to approve resolution number 2023-021.
Mayor, this is for the canceling of the city council meeting scheduled for January 2nd. So we bring that to you. It is, right after New Year's Day, which City Hall will be closed. So we'd like to cancel that meeting and just continue with the January 16th meeting, just because I think a lot of people will be out of town traveling or with family. And so that information will get passed over to the 16th. So that was the request.
Any questions or comments? No. Staff is disappointed that we're gonna cancel the meeting.
Very disappointed, Mayor.
Is there a motion?
Would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-021.
A motion by Councilwoman Galindo,
Second.
Councilwoman
Good.
Delgadillo. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Summer current events.
Here, first I'll call up Chief Juarez.
Mayor and Council, good afternoon. Araceli Juarez, Chief of Police. Just want to thank the community, Mayor, and all the staff members that showed up to the blood drive on the 14th. It was very successful. We had 22 units of blood that were collected. In the past, we've had maybe 12, 13, but it was very successful. So I just want to thank everyone that supported that good cause. Tamale Festival was very successful as well. We had very few minimal incidents and the public behaved themselves. And everybody, I think, had a real good time. So that's my report on that. And I just want to say that over the holidays, Christmas and New Year's, we'll have additional officers out on the street just to make sure that traffic is a little bit more controlled and that we're visible out on the road. So the streets are safe. And after that, I just want to wish everybody a good holiday. So we'll see you next year. Thank you.
Charles Gutierrez, Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Charles Gutierrez, Public Works Director. In the Streets Division, the continuing maintenance on the Rolo Pathway, East Main Street Pathway, the Jacob Alley, and the T Alley. In the Water Division, there's repaired approximately 5 water breaks. Also at the Somerton 1898, the water main line chlorine and pressure test passed for the water lines. And in the treatment plant on the reactor number 3 tank will begin cleaning out and repair in January at the top of the month. It'll take approximately 6 to 10 days. And as hopefully next week, the Public Works and Parks and Recreation will soon have a new safety look in January 2024. They're going to be getting some new vests with a city logo and the big tower on the back. So be lookout for our guys out there in the parks and the Public Works. We're all going to be symmetrical. We're all going to be looking alike. So hoorah. Thank you.
Jasmine Samudio, Economic Development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jasmine Samudio, Economic Development. I come to you today just to present to you Economic Development's first campaign called Park Behind, Shop Ahead. This campaign was designed specifically for business owners in downtown Somerton. Economic Development encouraged business owners to ask their staff and themselves to park behind their stores instead of in front on Main Street. By allowing passing traffic to have an available place to park, we believe this would entice more commerce in downtown Somerton. We provided a flyer in English and in Spanish, and I personally went out and spoke to approximately 90% of businesses in downtown Somerton. Most of the merchants seemed pleasant and accepting of the campaign, and they also agreed they liked it. I provided a flyer for mayor and council. The front is in English and the back one is in Spanish. I also added just basic commerce tips for them during this high season of the shopping times. Any questions? Thank you.
That's all we have, Mayor.
Councilman Castillo.
I want to go ahead and thank all staff for the light parade. Everything went great. It seemed the community was having fun. I think Mayor and I and the councilwomen's we got our workout in with all that walk and trying to hustle to catch up to the to the pickup, but we made it. I also want to thank staff for all their setup, their hard work for the Tamale Festival. Everything seemed great. You know, and I do want to wish staff, you know, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Wish you all the best. And that's all I have, Mayor.
What was that?
Sorry, I coughed.
Councilwoman Delgadillo.
I too want to thank staff for a great light parade. Thank you so much. I've heard really good comments and thank you for your hard work and everything that you did. PD, Fire, Angelica, your staff, Economic Development, everybody. Thank you so much. Public Works, it was a great, and thank you so much also for the Tamale Fest, all the staff that participated in that. I'm not in the committee, but I do volunteer. And I could see everyone participating. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I want to thank the PD as well for putting up that event for the blood drive. I'm afraid of needles, so I did excuse myself from that. But I don't know, it's just a phobia. But thank you so much, Chief, for putting that event every year. It's so much needed. And I also too want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a future prosperous 2024. I know that this upcoming year is going to be very successful for our city, for your families. Much love to all of you. Thank you.
Mayor, we have Councilman Gonzalez on the line too, just to let you know.
Councilwoman Gonzalez. Councilman Galindo.
Same thing. I just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. I was not able to attend the light parade, but I heard all good things. I was there at the Tamale Fest for maybe 5-6 hours. Everything looked great. Thank you to the city staff. And on behalf of the Roldan family, he told me to let you guys know that he appreciates all the prayers and the city support that he has got through the process they're going with his wife. And on behalf of the Roldan and us, you know, we thank you for all your support and continue praying for them. They need the prayers. Thank you.
City manager and I, we went on Sunday, we're invited to Águilas de Mexicali for Sin Fronteras series, and mayor from San Luis and Calexico were there, so it was a good partnership networking event. And I also want to thank staff for all their hard work this weekend for all events. Thank you, and have a happy New Year, a Merry Christmas, and Councilman Galindo, happy birthday on the 25th. I never forget his birthday. I know it's on the 25th. Yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session? So, a motion by Councilman Delgadillo, second by Councilman Galindo. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.